The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for more than 3,000 years. Its fleets were massive. Its soldiers were trained from birth. Its ships blocked out entire suns. No one challenged them anymore. At least that was what they believed. On the edge of Imperial Sector 9, near a rich mining world called Varian Prime, space suddenly bent. There was no warning. No long-range signal. No long-range signal. No warp signature detected early. One moment the area was empty. The next moment, something was there. A single human warship. It was not large compared to Imperial dreadnoughts. It did not carry bright banners. It did not broadcast threats. It simply appeared. Imperial scanners locked onto it within seconds. Inside the command station above Varian Prime, officers stared at their screens. "Identify that vessel," the commander ordered calmly. "Unknown configuration," a scanner officer replied. "Energy readings are unusual." "Unusual how?" "Unusual how?" "Stable. Extremely stable. No fluctuations." That was strange. Every ship in the galaxy showed energy fluctuation. Even the most advanced Imperial cruisers had slight variations. This ship did not. It was silent, still, watching. "Origin?" the commander asked. The room went quiet. "Human design," the officer said slowly. Some of the bridge crew laughed. "Humans?" one officer said. "They would not dare send a fleet here." "There is no fleet," another said. "Just one ship." The commander leaned forward. On the screen, the human warship rotated slowly. Its hull was dark silver, smooth, almost too smooth. No visible weapons. No heavy cannons. No missile bays. It looked simple. "That is their mistake," the commander said. "Humans always think they are clever." The Empire and humanity had not fought a full war. There had been border tensions, trade disputes, minor clashes. But the Empire never considered humans a serious threat. Humans were emotional, divided, too independent. Not like the Empire. "Send a warning," the commander ordered. A transmission beam shot toward the human vessel. "This is Imperial territory. You are trespassing. Power down and prepare for escort." The message was clear. Seconds passed. No response. The human warship did not move. "Send it again." The second message went out. Still nothing. Then suddenly, every light on the command bridge flickered. Only for a second. Officers looked around in confusion. "Power fluctuation." "Power fluctuation?" the commander asked. "Negative," the engineer replied. "All systems are stable." At the same time, deep space sensor arrays around Varian Prime began reporting errors. Long-range detection went blind for half a second. Communications satellites lost signal and regained it instantly. "What is happening?" the commander demanded. "Unknown interference source," the scanner officer said. "It seems centered on the human ship." The commander felt something cold settle in his chest. That ship had not fired. It had not activated visible weapons. It was simply there, and yet space around it felt wrong. Then the human vessel finally responded. A single transmission. Clear. Calm. Without emotion. "We warned you once." The bridge fell silent. "Warned us," an officer whispered. "When?" another asked. The commander's face hardened. "This is intimidation," he said. "They are trying to appear powerful." He turned toward the weapons officer. "Deploy 3 destroyers. Surround the vessel. Lock weapons, but hold fire." Moments later, 3 Imperial destroyers moved into position around the lone human warship. Compared to it, they were giants. Each destroyer carried heavy plasma cannons, missile batteries, and fighter squadrons. The human ship remained still. "Target acquired," the weapons officer reported. "Lock confirmed." The commander smiled slightly. "Final warning to the human vessel. Power down now. Silence." The commander raised his hand. "Disable their engines." "Disable their engines." The order went out. The 3 destroyers prepared to fire. And then, all 3 destroyers went dark. At the same time. No explosion. No energy beam. No visible attack. They simply lost power. Their engines shut down. Shields collapsed. Weapons offline. Life support switched to emergency mode. On the command station, alarms screamed. "What just happened?" the commander shouted. "We did not detect an attack," the scanner officer yelled. "No energy spike. How are they disabled?" "We do not know." The 3 massive destroyers floated in space like dead metal. The human warship had not moved. It had not charged weapons. It had not shown aggression. And yet 3 advanced Imperial ships were helpless. The human vessel rotated slightly, as if observing the damage. Then another transmission came. Calm, steady. This is your final warning. The commander's mouth felt dry. Around him, officers no longer laughed. They stared at the screen. One small ship. No fleet. No reinforcements. And it had disabled 3 warships without firing a shot. Deep inside Imperial territory, the commander contacted Sector Command immediately. Within minutes, the message reached the Imperial Fleet Admiral. Within an hour, the Emperor himself was informed. At first, many believed it was a malfunction, but engineers confirmed the truth. The destroyers were not damaged. Their systems had been shut down from the outside, completely overridden. That should have been impossible. The Empire had the most secure technology in the galaxy. No species had ever breached it. Until now. Back near Varian Prime, the human warship remained in position, silent, waiting, as if it knew reinforcements would come, as if it wanted them to come. The commander stared at the screen. For the first time in his career, he did not feel superior. He felt uncertain. And somewhere deep inside Imperial space, alarms began to spread. Because if one human warship could do this, what could a fleet do? The Empire had ignored the warning. And now, something had changed in the galaxy. The arrival of one ship had shaken an empire that believed itself untouchable. And this was only the beginning. News of the disabled destroyers spread through Imperial space like fire. 3 warships stopped without damage. No explosions. No visible attack. No weapon signature. The Imperial Fleet Admiral refused to believe it at first. "It is sabotage," he said. "Internal failure." But the engineers repeated the same report. All systems were remotely overridden. Not hacked. Not damaged. Overridden. That word made the Admiral uncomfortable. Only Imperial command codes could override a destroyer, and those codes were impossible to copy. Meanwhile, near Varian Prime, the human warship still floated in silence. It did not move closer to the planet. It did not retreat. It simply waited. The 3 powerless destroyers drifted like broken statues around it. Rescue ships tried to approach them. Each time they came within a certain distance of the human vessel, their systems flickered, not fully disabled, just a warning. The human ship was drawing a line in space, and nothing crossed it safely. The Emperor finally gave a direct order. Send the 7th Imperial Fleet. The 7th Fleet was not small. It was one of the largest battle groups in the Empire. 2 dreadnoughts, 12 heavy cruisers, more than 60 support ships, hundreds of fighters. A force designed to crush rebellions in hours. When the fleet arrived near Varian Prime, space itself seemed crowded. Massive shadows covered the stars. The human warship looked tiny compared to the Imperial dreadnoughts. On the flagship bridge of the 7th Fleet, Admiral Karth stood with his hands behind his back. He studied the human vessel carefully. "That is the ship?" he asked. "Yes, Admiral," an officer replied. "Energy readings remain stable. No visible weapons deployed." Karth narrowed his eyes. "No ship defeats 3 destroyers by accident." He opened a direct channel. "This is Admiral Karth of the 7th Imperial Fleet. You have violated Imperial space. Power down immediately." The human ship responded at once. "You have already seen what we can do." Karth did not like the calm tone of the voice. "You are surrounded by overwhelming force," he replied. "Do not test us." Silence. Then the human captain spoke again. "You are warned." The Admiral gave the order. "All ships, prepare synchronized strike." Across the fleet, weapons charged. Plasma cannons glowed bright blue. Missile bays opened. Energy levels rose sharply. On the human warship, nothing changed. No shields flared. No engines ignited. It remained still. Fire. The void exploded with light. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missiles raced toward the lone human ship. For a brief second, it seemed impossible that anything could survive. Then something happened. Space around the human vessel rippled, like water touched by wind. The incoming plasma bolts bent slightly. Not much. Just enough to miss. Missiles twisted off course, flying past the target. Some turned completely around and drifted away harmlessly. No impact. No explosion. Every shot failed. The bridge of the Imperial flagship went silent. "Adjust targeting," Karth ordered. They fired again and again. Each time, the same result. The human warship did not dodge. It did not raise visible shields. It did not shoot down missiles. It simply changed space itself. The admiral's confidence began to crack. "What field is that?" he demanded. "We do not know," the science officer answered. "It is not energy-based shielding. It is gravitational distortion." The words felt heavy. Gravity manipulation was theory, experimental, dangerous. No species had ever mastered it safely until now. The human ship finally moved, slowly, calmly. It advanced toward the fleet, not fast, but unstoppable. As it moved, strange readings spread outward. Imperial cruisers closest to it began losing sensor clarity. Targeting systems failed. Shield strength dropped without damage. One cruiser's engines shut off completely. Another lost weapon control. Panic began to spread across the fleet channels. Systems unstable. "We are losing control." The human warship was not firing. It was controlling the battlefield without attacking. Admiral Karth felt fear rising inside him. He had commanded fleets for decades. He had crushed rebellions and defeated rival species. He had never seen anything like this. "Full power to forward dreadnought," he ordered. "Ram if necessary." The massive dreadnought ignited its engines and charged forward. If weapons failed, mass would succeed. The giant ship raced toward the human vessel. The human warship did not turn, did not accelerate, did not retreat. At the last second, the dreadnought stopped, not by choice. Its engines shut down completely. Momentum vanished, as if space itself had grabbed it. The massive warship froze in place. Dead. Entire sections powered off instantly. Life support flickered. Weapons offline. The pride of the 7th Fleet had been neutralized without a single visible attack. Silence filled every Imperial channel. Then the human captain spoke again. "You mistake restraint for weakness." The message echoed across open frequencies. "You mistake patience for fear." Admiral Karth felt his hands tremble slightly. Around him, dozens of warships were losing function. Not destroyed, disabled, controlled. The human warship stopped advancing. It positioned itself directly in front of the fleet's center, like a teacher facing students. "Withdraw from occupied human systems," the calm voice said, "or this demonstration becomes permanent." Demonstration, that word hit harder than any weapon. This was not war. This was a warning, and the Empire was losing. For the first time in thousands of years, an Imperial fleet did not feel powerful. It felt helpless. Admiral Karth looked at his tactical display. One small human warship, surrounded by the greatest fleet in the sector. And yet, the Empire was the one in danger. Far away in the Imperial throne room, the Emperor received live battle reports. His face slowly lost color. He had believed humans were ambitious but limited. Now, he was watching his strongest fleet struggle against a single ship, and somewhere deep in his mind, a terrifying thought formed. If this was only one human warship, how many more were waiting in the dark? The 7th Imperial Fleet did not fire again. It could not. Half of its ships were barely functioning. The rest were unstable. The human warship remained in front of them, calm and unmoving. It did not chase. It did not destroy. It simply held control. Admiral Karth stood on his bridge, staring at the tactical display. One small silver ship, and around it, chaos. "This is not just advanced weapons," the science officer said quietly. "This is control over physics." "Explain," Karth demanded. "They are not blocking our attacks. They are bending space around themselves. Our weapons are missing because space is no longer straight." The word sounded impossible. Space was space. Gravity was gravity. No one shaped it like a tool. No one. Until now. Back on the human warship, Captain Elias Rowan watched the Imperial fleet through a wide observation screen. His ship's AI displayed every Imperial system in real time. Shield frequencies, engine outputs, life support stability. All of it was mapped and controlled. Fleet resistance decreasing, the AI reported calmly. Elias nodded once. He was not smiling. There was no joy in this. Only purpose. "Transmit Phase 2 warning," he said. The message went out across every Imperial channel. "This is not war. This is correction." The word spread quickly beyond the battlefield. Across Imperial space, civilians and officers alike watched live data feeds, ships failing, systems shutting down. The 7th Fleet was not being destroyed. It was being handled. like a child playing with toys. Inside the Imperial Science Core on the capital world, senior researchers gathered around massive data screens. They replayed sensor recordings again and again. The human ship did not generate massive energy spikes. It did not emit heavy radiation. It did not overload systems. Instead, it produced small, precise gravitational pulses, tiny distortions, perfectly controlled. Impossible, one scientist whispered. Another shook his head. No, not impossible, just ahead of us. They zoomed in on the first destroyers that had been disabled earlier. Their systems had not been hacked. They had been accessed through gravitational key resonance. The human ship had matched the physical vibration frequency of Imperial circuits. Then it had overridden them from the outside, not through code, through physics. This meant something terrifying. The human warship understood Imperial technology at its deepest level, better than the Empire understood itself. Back in the throne room, the Emperor listened as reports filled the chamber. They are requesting withdrawal from occupied human border systems, an advisor said. Occupied, the Emperor repeated coldly. Those systems had once been small human colonies. Years ago, the Empire had claimed them during expansion. There had been protests, warnings. Humans had demanded negotiations. The Empire ignored them. The colonies were absorbed. The Emperor had considered it insignificant. Humans were not strong enough to resist, or so he believed. Now he was watching the cost of that belief. Back at Varian Prime, Admiral Karth opened a private channel. To the human captain, he said, voice steady but tense. What you are doing is an act of aggression. Captain Elias responded instantly. No. Silence followed. Then Elias continued. This is restraint. On the Imperial flagship, officers exchanged nervous looks. Restraint? If this was restraint, what would war look like? The human ship suddenly emitted a wider pulse. Not strong, not destructive, but large enough to reach every vessel in the 7th Fleet. Every screen flickered. For 3 full seconds, every Imperial ship went dark. Total blackout. No lights, no control, no communication. In those 3 seconds, the Empire tasted true fear. Then systems returned. All ships online again. No damage. Just a message on every screen. We could have ended this. Admiral Karth felt sweat on his hands. He knew now that the human captain was not bluffing. This was a demonstration, a message, and it was working. In the human ship's command center, young officers looked at Captain Elias with quiet respect. Why not finish them? One asked carefully. Elias kept his eyes on the Imperial fleet. Because this is not revenge, he said. It is balance. He remembered the destroyed colony, the silent evacuation ships, the civilians who never returned. The Empire had believed humans would forget. They were wrong. Humans did not forget. They prepared. For years, hidden shipyards worked in secret. Scientists studied alien wreckage. Engineers tested dangerous theories. Many failed. Some died. But they did not stop. They built fewer ships than the Empire. But each one was designed with a single purpose: never be helpless again. And this warship was the first of its kind. Not a battleship, not a carrier, something new. A control vessel, a ship that shaped the battlefield itself. The AI spoke again. Multiple long-range warp signatures detected. Elias nodded. More Imperial reinforcements were arriving. Good. The message needed witnesses. Across space, more Imperial fleets were jumping toward Varian Prime, but something strange was happening. As they exited warp, they detected unstable gravitational fields. Navigation systems reported errors. Some ships had to abort their jumps entirely. The human warship was not only controlling local space, it was affecting warp lanes, quietly, subtly, limiting movement. The Empire was beginning to understand. This was not just one ship. This was a strategic weapon, a gatekeeper, and if one existed, there could be many more. On the Imperial capital, the Emperor finally spoke. Open a channel to the human government. Advisors looked shocked. Your Majesty? He did not take his eyes off the battle display. Now, back near Varian Prime, the human warship held its position. The 7th Fleet remained trapped, but alive. The stars around them looked peaceful, but nothing was the same. The balance of power had shifted. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Galactic Empire was not the strongest force in the room, and the humans had only sent one ship. The galaxy was watching now. What started as a small incident near Varian Prime had turned into something far greater. News channels across Imperial space streamed live tactical data. Civilian networks replayed the moment when the dreadnought froze in space. For the first time in history, the Empire did not look invincible. At the center of it all, the lone human warship remained perfectly still, but it was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol. Inside the Imperial throne room, silence filled the air. The Emperor stood before a giant holographic display of the battlefield. Red markers showed disabled ships. Yellow markers showed unstable systems. In the middle of it all, one small silver icon glowed steady and calm. "Open the channel," the Emperor ordered. A long-distance quantum link activated. On the human side, Captain Elias Rowan stood in his command center. He knew the call was coming. The Empire had too much pride to admit defeat quietly. The Emperor appeared on the main screen. He did not look afraid, but he no longer looked confident either. "You have made your point," the Emperor said. Elias did not bow. He did not salute. He simply answered. "The point has not yet been understood." The throne room grew tense. "You have crippled an Imperial fleet," the Emperor said. "That is an act of war." Elias shook his head slightly. "No ships were destroyed, no lives taken. You call this war. We call this mercy." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "You demand we withdraw from systems that legally belong to the Empire." Elias answered calmly. "They were never yours." Silence again. The Emperor turned slightly, whispering to his advisor. The human captain waited without emotion. Then something changed. On the battlefield, a new warp signature appeared, large, powerful. The Imperial flagship of the First Royal Guard fleet entered the system. It was the pride of the Empire, larger than any ship present, heavily armed, built only for the Emperor's direct command. Admiral Karth felt both relief and fear. The Royal Guard fleet was legendary. If anything could restore Imperial honor, it was this. The Emperor looked back at Elias. "You have forced my hand," he said. Elias glanced at his tactical screen. The AI confirmed the new fleet's arrival. "Your Majesty," Elias said quietly, "this is the line." The Royal Guard flagship moved forward slowly. Its hull was covered in layered armor. Massive energy cannons charged along its sides. The human warship did not move. The Emperor spoke clearly. "Disable that vessel." The Royal Guard fleet locked weapons. Energy levels rose to dangerous heights. Across the battlefield, every ship watched. If the human warship failed now, the Empire would regain control. The Royal Guard fired. This was not a small strike. It was full power. Blinding beams of energy tore across space toward the human vessel. For a brief moment, the human ship vanished inside a storm of light. Imperial officers leaned forward. Then the light faded. The human warship was still there. Not a scratch. Not a flicker. Instead, something new appeared around it. A faint circular distortion expanded outward like a ripple in water. The ripple reached the Royal Guard flagship. And then, the massive Imperial ship shook violently, not from explosion, not from impact, but from internal collapse. Gravity inside the flagship shifted sideways, decks tilted, weapons misfired, shield generators overloaded, onboard alarms screamed. "What is happening?" the Royal Admiral shouted. The science teams stared in horror. Local gravity is being rewritten. The human warship was not attacking with force. It was rewriting physical constants inside a limited area. Inside the Royal Guard flagship, crew members floated for a split second before slamming against walls. Structural beams bent, but the ship did not explode. It was being held on the edge of destruction, perfectly controlled. Captain Elias spoke calmly. "This is the line." On every Imperial screen, the same message appeared again. "Withdraw." The Emperor's face lost color. He had believed the Royal Guard fleet was untouchable. Now he understood something terrible. The human warship was not showing its full strength before. This was still measured, still precise, still controlled. If the human captain wanted destruction, it would have already happened. The Emperor slowly raised his hand. "Cease fire." The order echoed through the system. Weapons powered down. The Royal Guard flagship stabilized slowly as the gravitational distortion faded. The human warship returned to complete stillness, like nothing had happened. Across the galaxy, millions watched in silence. The Empire had fired with full power and failed. The Emperor spoke again, this time slower. "What happens if we refuse?" Elias did not hesitate. then the next demonstration will not be reversible. That sentence carried more weight than any weapon, because now the Empire believed him. The human warship had proven something greater than power, control, precision, restraint. It could end fleets. It could collapse flagships. It could rewrite gravity, and it chose not to. That choice scared the Empire more than destruction would have. On the battlefield, the 7th Fleet remained disabled but alive. The Royal Guard fleet stood shaken but intact. The single human warship floated between them, small, silent, unbreakable. The balance of the galaxy had shifted in one day, not through invasion, not through genocide, but through a message delivered with perfect confidence. The Emperor closed his eyes for a moment. For the first time in thousands of years, the Empire faced something stronger, not in size, not in numbers, but in understanding. He opened his eyes again, and now he had to decide: pride or survival, because the humans had drawn a line in space, and the Empire had just learned it should never have been crossed. The battlefield was silent. 2 imperial fleets floated in formation, weapons powered down. Ships that once carried pride now carried fear. In the center of it all, the lone human warship remained still. It did not celebrate. It did not threaten. It simply existed. Inside the imperial throne room, no one spoke. The Emperor stood with his hands behind his back, staring at the holographic display. He had ruled with strength his entire life. Strength was simple. Strength was simple. Strength meant more ships, more weapons, more territory. But what he was seeing now was something different. It was not brute force. It was superiority through understanding. Open a secured channel, the Emperor ordered quietly. The room obeyed immediately. On the human warship, Captain Elias watched the signal appear. He nodded once. The Emperor's image formed again between them. This time, there was no anger in his eyes, only calculation. "You have proven your strength," the Emperor said slowly. "What do you truly want?" Elias answered without delay. "Correction." The Emperor frowned slightly. "Define it." "You expanded into our systems without negotiation. You removed our colonies. You believed we would adapt or disappear." The Emperor did not interrupt. Elias continued. "We adapted." The words were simple, but heavy. "We asked for dialogue," Elias said. "You sent fleets, we asked for time. You sent governors, we asked for respect. You sent governors, we asked for respect. You sent silence." Across the imperial chamber, advisors shifted uncomfortably. The Emperor spoke again. "And now you send a warship." "Yes," Elias replied calmly. "One." The Emperor understood the meaning behind that word now. One was enough. "You believe this will force us to retreat?" the Emperor asked. Elias looked directly into the Emperor's eyes. "No. I believe it will force you to think." On the battlefield, Imperial engineers were still trying to understand what had happened. Data streams filled analysis centers across the capital. Scientists replayed the gravitational distortions again and again. The human warship did not output impossible energy. It used energy efficiently. It did not overpower systems. It understood them. That was the difference. The Empire had always built bigger ships. Humans built smarter ones. Back in the throne room, a senior military advisor stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he whispered carefully, "if they possess more vessels like this, our expansion fleets are vulnerable." The Emperor already knew that. If even 5 of these human warships existed, they could lock down entire sectors. If 10 existed, they could control trade routes. If 20 existed, the Empire's military advantage would collapse overnight. The Emperor returned his attention to Elias. "How many?" he asked quietly. Elias did not smile. He did not hesitate. "Enough." The answer was perfect. Not a number, not a threat, just certainty. On the human warship, young officers stood silently behind their captain. They knew the truth. There were more ships, not hundreds, not thousands, but enough. Humanity had not tried to match the Empire in numbers. They had changed the rules instead. Far away, in hidden human shipyards near dark nebulae, other vessels of the same class waited quietly. They did not patrol. They did not show themselves. They simply existed, and the Empire now knew that. The Emperor walked slowly around the holographic battlefield. He studied the disabled 7th Fleet. He studied the shaken Royal Guard flagship. Then he spoke. "If we withdraw from the disputed systems, will you stand down?" Elias nodded once. "Yes." "And if we refuse?" The human captain's voice remained steady. Then the next phase begins. The Emperor felt a chill at those words. Define next phase, Elias answered calmly. We stop limiting the field. That sentence changed everything. Until now, the human warship had contained its gravitational effects carefully, local area only, measured pulses, precise control. If they expanded the field, entire fleets could lose navigation at once. Warp lanes could collapse. Supply routes could vanish. The Empire would not be destroyed. It would be paralyzed, slowly, systematically, without massive explosions, without dramatic battles. Just controlled shutdown. The Emperor finally understood the human warship was not a weapon of destruction. It was a weapon of dominance. It did not need to kill. It only needed to control. And control was more powerful than fear. Silence filled the throne room again. Outside the palace windows, the lights of the capital world shimmered. For thousands of years, those lights symbolized certainty. Now they represented vulnerability. The Emperor made his decision. Prepare withdrawal orders, he said quietly. Gasps spread across the chamber. Your Majesty, one advisor began. He raised his hand. The Empire survives by adapting, he said firmly, not by pretending we are still alone at the top. The secure channel remained open. Elias waited. The Emperor looked directly at him. We will withdraw from the disputed human systems. Governance will return to your people. There it was. Victory. But Elias did not celebrate. Wise, he said simply. The Emperor added one final question. Is this how humanity sees itself now? Above us? Elias shook his head slowly. No. Then how? Then how? The human captain's answer came softly. Equal. That word echoed in the silent throne room. Not conqueror, not ruler. Equal. The Emperor studied the human for several long seconds. Then he nodded once. Then let this be remembered, he said. The day the Empire learned. On the battlefield, orders were transmitted. Imperial ships slowly began to pull back. Engines powered up carefully. The human warship reduced its field gradually, allowing full system restoration. One by one, disabled ships regained control. No pursuit followed, no final strike. The human vessel remained still as the fleets retreated. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The Empire had underestimated humanity, and humanity had responded with precision. Not rage, not chaos. Precision. As the last Imperial ship jumped to warp, Captain Elias stood alone at the observation screen. The stars were calm again, but nothing was the same. Humanity had drawn a line, and this time, the galaxy understood. The Seventh Fleet returned home in silence. No victory music played. No public celebration followed. Ships that once carried pride now carried a new weight, understanding. Across Imperial space, citizens watched recorded battle feeds again and again. A single human warship, no massive explosions, no dramatic last stands, just control, just superiority. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Empire was not the unquestioned power of the galaxy, and that truth spread faster than any fleet. Other species began to whisper. The trade unions in the outer sectors, the neutral systems along the border, the small civilizations that had quietly accepted imperial rule. They had all seen it. The Empire could be stopped. Not destroyed, stopped. And what shocked them most was not the power of the human warship. It was its restraint. The humans could have erased fleets. They did not. They could have collapsed flagships. They did not. They forced correction, not collapse. That difference changed everything. The Emperor stood alone in his private chamber. He replayed the moment when the Royal Guard flagship tilted under gravity control. He replayed the 3-second blackout across the battlefield. He replayed the calm voice of the human captain. We mistake restraint for weakness. That sentence stayed in his mind. For centuries, the Empire had ruled through visible strength. But humanity had demonstrated invisible strength, the kind that did not shout, the kind that did not need to. The Emperor called his highest advisors. Begin technological reassessment, he ordered. We must understand what they understand. The Empire would not collapse. It would adapt. But now it would adapt with caution and with respect. Captain Elias Rowan stood in the quiet command center. The battlefield was empty now. Stars returned to their normal glow. The AI displayed confirmation. Imperial withdrawal complete. A young officer finally allowed himself to smile. "We won," he said softly. Elias shook his head. "No." The officer looked confused. Elias continued. "We corrected. That was the mission from the beginning. Years ago, after the colony loss, humanity faced two paths: revenge or preparation. They chose preparation. While the empire expanded outward, humans expanded inward. They invested in research. They studied gravity physics in hidden laboratories. They tested dangerous prototypes in empty space. Many experiments failed. Some nearly destroyed entire stations. But humans did not stop. They asked one question over and over: what if we are ever outnumbered? The answer became this ship. Not larger, not louder, just smarter. The human warship was not built to conquer. It was built so humanity would never kneel again. Far beyond imperial sensors, in deep dark sectors of space, other human ships received silent updates. Ships identical in design. Ships that had never been seen. They had not moved during the confrontation. They had not needed to, but they were ready. Each one positioned near important warp corridors, each one capable of bending space in controlled areas. Humanity did not need 1,000 warships. They needed enough. Enough to ensure balance. Enough to ensure balance. Enough to ensure respect. And now, the galaxy knew they existed. That knowledge alone was power. Before leaving Imperial space, Captain Elias received one final secure message. It was not public. It was direct from the Emperor. "No recording," the Emperor said. Elias agreed. The Emperor spoke first. "You could have destroyed my fleets." "Yes," Elias replied. "Why did you not?" Elias paused before answering. "Because destruction creates enemies. Balance creates stability." The Emperor studied him carefully. "You are not what we expected humanity to become." Elias allowed the smallest hint of a smile. "We are not what you allowed yourselves to see." Silence followed. Then the Emperor asked one final question. "If one day we surpass you, what then?" Elias answered without hesitation. "Then we will adapt." That answer surprised the Emperor. There was no arrogance in it, only certainty. The call ended. No threats, no promises, just understanding. The human warship turned slowly. Its engines activated quietly. Space folded gently around it, and in a flash of controlled light, it disappeared into warp. No dramatic exit, no triumphant broadcast, just silence. Back on Earth, news of the withdrawal spread quickly. Citizens gathered in cities, watching reports on massive screens. There were cheers, there was relief, but there was no hatred. Humanity had not sought war, they had sought security, and they had achieved it. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. Trade agreements reopened between humans and the Empire. Neutral systems approached humanity with cautious respect. Some even requested technological exchange. The Empire no longer expanded aggressively near human borders. Instead, diplomatic channels remained active, not out of friendship, but out of recognition. The Empire had underestimated humanity once. They would not make that mistake again. Years later, historians across many species would mark that day as a turning point, not the day of a great war, not the day of a great destruction, but the day power shifted quietly. The day a single human warship showed the galaxy something new. True strength was not loud. It did not boast. It did not need numbers. True strength understood when to hold back, and that was what the Empire had never understood. Until now, somewhere in deep space, the human warship continued its patrol, silent, watchful, ready, not as a conqueror, ready, not as a conqueror, not as a tyrant, but as a guardian of balance. Because the galaxy had learned something important, they ignored one human warship, and they regretted it instantly. But what truly changed the stars was this: humanity did not come to rule. They came to ensure no one ever ruled them again. And that difference reshaped the future of the galaxy forever.